I mean, I've always been the kind of guy to kind of think twice about certain dating apps, especially to whom you're speaking to, but my God, the Tinder Swindler, I mean, that was just shocking. As always, guys, if you already haven't, please like and subscribe to the channel. I'd really, really appreciate it. I'm also on TikTok and Twitter, so if you're on any of those platforms, please hit me up. I'm just still in shock, to be fair. I mean, I'm still kind of processing the whole documentary. One of my colleagues recommended it, and I didn't really think much of it, but when I started it, I was like, oh my God, this is actually quite intense. Even from the get-go, it was just like, wow, and it just kind of kept me going on and on and on, because even though I was watching it, I just found myself really engrossed with the stories. I didn't realize it was going down the road it was supposed to be going down to. But even watching it from the start, like, especially from these women's point of view, I mean, there was three of them all together. I can't really remember the names at this point, but just kind of thinking about their individual story was just absolutely mental. I mean, they kind of start with the kind of positive, happy, jokey kind of attitude, and then it just gets really, really serious. And I'm kind of thinking, like, was this like a bad experience for you? And I suppose, you know, they have to kind of get that anticipation of what actually happened and the expense of it all. So I kind of get that. I mean, thinking of Tinder, I mean, I've been on Tinder for a good couple of years now, and it's like, God, you just really can't trust anyone. And I'm not saying, every relationship kind of has to be that way. I'm not saying that at all. But, you just really need to think. And, I remember growing up and, like, I had my parents like, oh, be careful with you posting pictures on Facebook. Like when it was first in its infancy, a lot of parents are going to be cautious. And then all of a sudden it became mainstream of how popular social media became. And, watching something like this, and I mean, because I always thought, for me, if a guy asks you for some money at the get-go, you obviously, delete them, block them, whatever. But this was going for weeks. It was going on for such a long time. And, I think for anybody that if you find a millionaire that's suddenly interested in you, you are going to question, like, the motivation of it all. You're like, I mean, I'm going to search into him and find out what his intentions are. Is he real? Is he legit? And then you find out, oh my God. And it's just crazy how somebody could actually go to that much trouble to actually just lie about everything and just come up with all these websites. And, it's just incredible how someone like that can just spend so much time trying to double cross somebody, especially like with all their money. And, and I feel so bad for like the women in this as well. And I'm kind of glad it ended the way it did, but my God, I mean, spoiler here, I mean, just so you know, there is going to be some spoilers in this review, so don't watch it anymore if whatever. But he got 15 months, like, in prison, and then he was released, and it was almost like he just went straight back into that kind of reality. I mean, obviously his girlfriend at the time just kind of dumped him because she found out what was going on, especially from this documentary. And I must tell you now, like, even though this documentary has kind of made it, everyone's going to be knowing about, like, him specifically. But even so, I mean, I've not even researched myself, but, he's still posting on Instagram and pretty much showing the amazing lifestyle, because he's got like 10 million in his bank. I mean, all of that should have just been wiped out. Like, what were they thinking? I mean, I really kind of just like want to dive into this more and probably even check out his Instagram, because it's just really baffling to me. I mean, obviously, if there's nothing to convict from him, and, clearly you're in your own frame of mind if this was real or not, or whether was it the women that were in the wrong, or was it him? But apparently he was doing this well late into his teens, from what the documentary says. Absolutely crazy just how it kind of kept escalating and escalating. And even keeping with his name as well. And these three women, I mean, you can really understand, like, where they're coming from. And it's just so interesting. I would recommend anybody to watch this, especially if you're on these kind of dating apps, because it does give you a sense of awareness. And you kind of should be, but always have it in the back of your mind that you can never really fully trust someone until, I don't know, I mean, what else can I say? I mean, it took them months before this actually kicked off. So, yeah, I would just say, just be very careful with who you're speaking to. It kind of makes me think, would he actually do this again? Because he is technically scot-free. Because he's got all this money, if he ever runs out, will he ever do it again? Probably not, because people know his face. But again, even in this documentary, there was talk about he wanted to get plastic surgery. And that was another thing that I really enjoyed about this series as well. It was really filmed really well. It really kept me going on, but I was really impressed with how it ended as well, because eventually, when the first two women kind of got together and decided to make like a campaign to raise awareness about this guy, you know, he's on the run, he's on the loose, and he wanted to make everyone aware of what he was doing, and they did. And obviously at the time, this guy Simon, he was doing the same thing with this woman, which was the third woman in the documentary, and I just love the whole fact that she wanted to double cross him, because even though she confronted him about it, he was still denying it. And I don't know, there was just a lot of like the way he was kind of messaging these women, like, oh, it's my enemies, and I'm almost like, well, yeah, you're pretending to be this billionaire, and it's almost like, well, where's your family? I mean, these were the questions that I would be asking, you know, and it was almost like, even when he kind of brought up the fact, oh, could you really do me this favor? Even though I've been kind of flying you around the world, had expensive dinners, expensive parties, whatever, in the end, he was still asking them for money. And even though I'd just be kind of like, I don't have any money. You know, you're telling me I need to get an Amex card, I need to get a loan, I can't get that money, and now you're putting me on your payroll so I can get that money. I mean, there's just so many ins and outs, and just so many problems that just would occur, and I'd be like, sorry mate, I'm out. No, not doing it. Do it yourself. You know, and I would have at least called the police or something, and if that was the case, if your enemies were actually after you, you know, speak to a higher authority. And yeah, he could probably say, yeah, but they have the police, they have all that. I'd be like, yeah mate, well, I'm out. Sorry, I'm not getting in trouble. And you're talking about people like coming for you and killing you. I don't want to get in the mix of that. You know, we've only been going out for like a month or two. Sod that. But that'd be me anyway. But anyway, the way it ended was just so iconic. But I'm still really miffed why he isn't still in prison, you know. And even Netflix, I'm assuming it was Netflix, they actually said to him, can we do this documentary? And he actually insisted to do it because he wanted to clear his name. And I'm like, well, okay. But I think coming from his mind as well, it was probably a clean slate, because they talk about he's a very smart man. And these women, they're talking about how smart he is, you know, and especially from a young age as well, like growing up and kind of being a con artist, you know. He must have had in his mind like, well, I've had a long run, so maybe it's time to just settle down. I've got 10 million in the bank. I'll do this documentary. I'll just kind of get it all out there and I'll start anew. But, you know, people are still going to be quiet, especially a lot of these women. They're going to be thinking, yeah, but you're asking me out on a date, but you with the documentary, and it's like, oh yeah, well, I've turned over a new leaf. But at least they know. Like, if you ever asked them, oh, can I borrow a couple of 100,000, then at least they know. So in that respect, maybe. But still, it doesn't make it right. You know, I still think he should be behind bars, and at least penniless. You know, 10 million, you know, looking at Audis and all these sports cars and all this designer gear, still, even after this documentary, I'm like, I mean, it'd be very interesting if they did like a second episode, because this is just one episode. You know, it was only on for just under 2 hours, but I really, really just kind of wanted to see more about it. But in the end, it was almost like he got off scot-free, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, lucky sod, you know. I mean, the women seem very positive at the end of this, even though they're still paying off their debts, you know, even at least he would have the common courtesy to pay it all off for them. But I suppose that would make him guilty, and obviously he thinks he's not, so what can I say? Documentary, 10 out of 10. I really enjoyed this. I would really watch this again, considering, because I don't watch a lot of documentaries. But 10 out of 10, without a doubt. Or maybe a 9, because there's always room for improvement. But the story was just like, yeah, you need to watch this, guys. Honestly, absolutely amazing. It's on Netflix. Go check it out. It's only 2 hours. And please like and subscribe to the channel. And hopefully see you again soon. Guys, take care. Bye.